I think it is time to look at a more realistic K6 Cloud execution. In the following example, I'm going to use this API, which essentially deals with crocodiles. This is an API from Grafana K6, and I already developed a script that I'm going to show you in a second. Before we do that, let's jump back into our project. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. I'm going to call it the Crocodile API project. And with that project, I'm going to go ahead and copy the ID of the project. I will make this script available as a resource to this folder so that you can also execute this on your own. And essentially, using this API, we're going here to different endpoints. But let's begin first with the options. We have here 3 different stages. We're not trying to put a lot of load on this API. So we have the first ramp up stage where we want to have 10 virtual users, and we're doing this for 10 seconds. Then we are keeping this at 10 users for another 60 seconds, and then we're ramping down to 0. We also have defined here some thresholds, nothing too spectacular, but just to have something there. And we also want to store this information in a project. So this is why we're going to configure here the project ID so that we can have this in Grafana Cloud. Apart from this, we're going here through different endpoints. So the idea is pretty much the same. We're making an HTTP request. We have here some checks, and then we have a random sleep time. And we're doing this for different endpoints here. Of course, the first step would be to check that everything is working locally for you before using the cloud. I already did this just minutes ago. Everything is working good. So I'm ready to use the K6 Cloud to run this. I'm going to use here K6 Cloud. And I'm going to specify the script. So let's start the execution. It's going to take a few seconds for this to start. But once it starts, all we have to do is open here this link, and we can see almost in real time what is going on. So initially, K6 will create the necessary infrastructure to start running this test. And in just a few seconds, we're going to see here live information. So we can see here how many requests are being made, if there are any HTTP failures, how many requests per second we are sending, and the 95th percentile. We're going to see here also the request rate, which is essentially the throughput, represented here in violet. Then we have the response time, which is this cyan color. And there's also the failure rate, which hopefully should stay here right at the bottom. And you can see then, as the test is progressing, you're going to see here, this is the ramp up time. And now you'll see here we have reached essentially the 10 virtual users that we wanted. Apart from this, further down, we can see exactly what's going on. We're going to see here the thresholds we have defined. And again, in real time, we're going to see here if the checks and the request duration, everything is what we expect. We can also have here an overview of all the checks that we are running and see if anything is failing. We can take a look at the HTTP requests that are being sent out. And then we can see individual requests, how they're doing, right? So we're going to see here for each individual request, mean, average, the 95th percentile, the 99th percentile, and so on. Because our script is uploaded to K6, we can also take a look at the script itself. So we see exactly what script we have used for this execution. In the meantime, this execution is now done. So again, we have reached our 10 virtual users, ramp up time. We have continued here for the specified duration. And we also have here the ramp down stage. Again, once the execution is done, we can check if all the thresholds and checks are still passing. So if we see 3 out of 3 means that everything is okay. If we see here the checks 455 out of 455 means that everything is okay. Again, we don't want to put a lot of load on this public API. So try to lower as much as possible your request per second rate. This is something that you want to pay attention to. Obviously, this is not generating a lot of load, and we don't want to generate a lot of load.